Alright folks, let's go over the last minute changes on the common test for patch 1.19.1 before the release next week. So right after holiday ops, we're getting a new patch with the rocket heavy tanks, but there's a new skin for the Caliban, HMS Bruiser, but Daddy's belt. Oh no, stepfather, I've been a bad girl. Can't have a sexy voice with a sore throat. Literally from being sick, not figuratively. Whatever. Sea mine for the back. That's interesting. Has a blue overall camouflage pattern. Kind of reminds me of the salamander style for the Sheridan. Large searchlight, naval searchlight, or signal light. 50 caliber pinup on the frontal hull. It's okay, it's a decent skin, but the vehicles suck. It's a wannabe 176 that got introduced 1 year earlier. It's an auto reloader, but it's not accurate. So, speaking of suck, all the rocket Chinese heavy tanks gets a nerf with the latest iteration of the common test. So all of these gets a nerf, but let's take a look. So starting off with the 116 F3, the next upcoming tier 10 for Clan Wars, it gets a DPM nerf, about 1 shell of alpha. Now it has the armor, but it's kind of dramatic how a tier 10 has sub 2000 DPM. It's an autoloader too, so you cannot put a rammer on this thing, but it has the armor, so how good is it? I guess with sub 2000 DPM, the armor better holds up, right? Better. But taking a look, upper plate is about 300. It's about 200 slope backwards, so it's like an E100. But lower plate, 195, slope downwards to about 277. So pretty thick. The lower plate is only about 60, so that's where you should go for. But this thing has gun depression of 8 degrees, which is pretty nice most of the time. The only downside is the commander cupola and the loader cupola strip, but it's a small target, and the turret is thick, about 300mm rounded, so yeah, I can see why they nerfed the DPM, especially with 120mm side armor with side skirts and tracks. Not above the hull, or not above the tracks, but yeah, still pretty good. Is it worth it for a sub 2000 DPM? Kind of. It is an autoloader, but more reliable armor than the Kranwagen, right? Should be. So debatable. Alright, moving on to the suck for all the rocket Chinese heavy tanks. All of them gets a nerf. Starting at tier 7 with the BZ-58. DPM gets a nerf to about 1 shell of alpha, which is pretty huge. So it gets about the same DPM as a T-29 now. Nerf the top speed and nerf the effective top speed. Originally has no cooldown for the rocket booster for some reason. I don't know, whatever. But garbage view range, about the same health as the T-29. The turret is a lot larger than the T-29, so more prone to artillery shell, practically. That's a stock turret. Looks like an IS turret, but upgrading it looks like that. It is pretty long. So artillery shell hits the top, which is about 35mm. Oof, that is thin. But taking a look at the armor, yeah, you had the commander cupola weak spot only 35, so large caliber gun will overmatch from like tier 8s or tier 9s. Flat turret cheeks only 220, so you'll face gold shell if they manage to not pin with regular shells. Upper plate 70 only. I mean, it is used on the BZ-58-2 at tier 9, but still, it's only 70. I mean, that cut to the DPM is pretty huge. It is dramatic. It's 1 shell alpha cut. T-29 was a long-ass king of tier 7 heavies, but it's about the same ballpark nowadays with this vehicle. I don't think this is the funnest out of all the Chinese rocket heavy tanks, but the premium one is obviously the funnest. Moving on to tier 8 with the BZ-166. DPM gets a cut. It has about the same DPM as a tier 7. Oh god. Cut to top speed, health, as well as accuracy. I mean, about 15-second reload for a 122? That is pretty bad. But then again, it's a higher alpha than the average, but still. Yeah, it's 122. Well, stock turret looks a little bit better than the upgraded turret. Lack of a weak spot on top. So looking at the stock turret, yeah, stock turret is a lot better. You don't have the Commander Cupola weak spot. That's about the same size as a Bulldog or something, but yeah, that's or the recent M47 improved practically, but ugh. All great. It broke my. There we go. There we go. That's the Commander Cupola and Loader Cupola we're looking for. Blah. Gross. I mean, upper plate is still decent. It has the gun depression. The lower plate is garbage, obviously, but it's more dramatic than the 176. And plus, you don't have the derp gun, which is the more fun of the gun, right? But yeah, whatever. I mean, 1700 DPM, that is crap. It's like a T-34 practically, but with weak spots. Oh, alright. Tier 9, BZX68. I think this might be the best out of all of them. Might be. So DPM gets a somewhat of a cut. Not that dramatic, but still a cut. Aim time gets a cut. Top speed gets a cut. Health gets a cut. Weird gun depression angles, so make sure of that. Don't depress over your tracks. You don't have as much gun depression, only 8. And even less when you're hitting the tracks, but let's take a look at the turret. It's a lot better than tier 10. A lot better. So stock turret wise, Commander Cupola weak spot. Yeah. It has about the same hull as a 113 or so, but not the 112, 113. Yeah, Commander Cupola weak spot. Upper plate is about the 113-ish. So not bad upper plate, but you have to angle it. And moving on to the stock turret, to the upgraded turret. And Commander Cupola looks smaller. Yeah, it's still there, but meh. Okay. You have the benefits of better DPM and other stuff, but this might be the best one out of all of them. This might be the best one. I mean, if you take a look at the tier 10 cupolas are huge, and there's a ridge in the middle. So tier 10 gets a DPM cut as well. Accuracy, aim time, top speed, all of them gets a cut. Doesn't get a cut to the health, surprisingly. Has a lot of health, but once you look at the turret, it has the weak spots. It has a lot of weak spots. Why does it suck? Look at it. Look at it. It's like an E5 practically, but there's 3 of them. 3 cupolas, or 2 for the sides and 1 for the middle, the ridge that holds the gun elevation or depression when the gun depress. It's only 223 and 170 for the cupolas. They'll go through. Oh, upper plate, it's good. But lower plate, it's alright. Still, the cupolas are huge. It's not fast. It doesn't have like 18 or 17 horsepower per ton ratio like the E5 practically. Did I say E3? It's the E5. I meant the E5. So T110 E5 has the mobility. It has the Commander Cupola weak spot, but it can wiggle around like throwing off the shots. So, bah. Why does it suck so hard? Alright, moving on to the Japanese tank destroyer. It gets a DPM cut. Unfortunate. I mean, it's a premium tank, but still suck. Aim time gets a cut. Now, funny enough, originally it has less penetration for the gold shell and more alpha. They give it a better gold shell with better penetration, but less alpha and costs a little bit more. High explosives stay the same, but it costs more too. So also has a 10% chance more to catch on fire, but alright. I mean, we'll go over a more in detail vehicle review, but overall, it's alright. It's like a mix between a Ferdinand and a Yak Panther 2 for the Japanese. It's a premium tank, so preferable to have a better gold shell penetration, but it costs a lot, so I mean, costs more, about 10% more. Okay, whatever. And finally, tanks.gg has not been updated to iteration number 3, so we already see a change for the K91-2. This should be red. All of these should be red. So all nerf, as well as the T54 heavy, and they removed the infinite large repair kit on the BZ58-2. So all of them gets a nerf. Yeah, they may become battle pass tanks or auction tanks. I mean, if we already see the same repeating pattern of auction in January, then Wargaming will probably do another one to siphon back all the holiday ops and other gold and stuff from holiday ops. So I'm thinking auction is coming up soon, possibly. So yeah, these 3 vehicles have been changed. This one is no longer a battle pass candidate with infinite large repair kit. So, well, there you go, folks. Most of the changes before 1.19.1 comes out next week. And all the Chinese rocket tanks suck compared to the premium one. Why? The best one is likely the tier 9. Likely, I think. It's more consistent with the hull armor. It's not as huge. You have the gun, I think. It doesn't look as bad, I guess. But yeah, tier 10 does pretty suck. So, I don't know if it's a worthwhile compared to the premium one. The premium version of the rocket tanks is so freaking abysmally overpowered for its tier, especially the gold high exposure round. That's what's carrying this vehicle, this gold shell. The AP shell is alright, but it takes way too long to reload. This is where the money is at, the gold shell. But all the normal tanks suck compared to this thing. Really? You might as well play with the 5A. 5A is great. It has better horsepower per ton ratio, better top speed, better commander cupola because it's not as huge as the BZ-75, and the gun punches harder, has more DPM, right? It's more accurate too. Why not just play with the 5A? It's not a bad vehicle. Sure, it doesn't have as much hull armor or turret cheek armor, but that doesn't matter when you're fast. I don't know. Well, there you go, folks. Most of the small details, and we'll wrap up the video by taking a look at this thing. So you already see this indicator at the end of preview for 2023. Now, if you turn off end plates, so hide end cards, you can see it's a turret of sorts, obviously. But there's a shell covering or grenade cover for the cupola right here. This is likely the loader cupola. This is likely the commander cupola. And you can see the size of the bustle rack as well as this little plate right here. But this is very, very close to this vehicle. As expected, practically. So we're likely going to see assembly shop, likely summer or so, possibly, for this thing. The OF40. Taking a look at the back of the turret. It's almost exactly the same with the covering for the loader cupola, and that's the commander cupola, but the bustle rack is pretty much about the same. Just move the machine gun over, practically, with a little number for assembly shop. That's about the same, right? Yeah, that's very close. Oh, there you go, folks. Small tidbits of info, and hopefully, well, the rocket heavy tanks won't be that much of a problem, I guess, but yeah, you still see the BZ-176 en masse in random pub matches, but once the holiday season is over, you get a little bit better reprieve because there's not as many people playing, so therefore you don't get preferential matchmaking with the BZ-176 practically. You don't see all tier 8s or sometimes tier 6s without seeing tier 10s, so a little bit better or more fair matchmaking, I guess, for this vehicle, but it's none of the normal heavy tanks are as good, not even close. Well, there you go, folks. Just the wrap up for 1.19.1, and we'll see it next week. So, as always, thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.